we go. I normally take a look. I'll watch it here in the old fine Facebook group. But all right, everyone, I am Coach Todd Bookspan, and I am super excited to have you all here today because I'm joined by one of the people, you all have those people that are at the very, very top of your list of influencers, people who've helped you get to where you are in life, not just in business, but as a human being as well. And that man is my good friend, my good mentor, my good fellow coach, Bill Hart, who coached me for the first 4 years of my career, and I credit with pretty much, 99.5% of my success. So welcome, Bill. So great to have you here.
Dude, who is responsible for the other half of 1%? Come on.
I'll give that to myself and then a bunch of other mentors like Daniel and Michael and, other amazing people who poured into my life.
You are ridiculously gracious, and it is my honor to hang with you. And I love more than you know, seeing you in this role. Love it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And of course, we've got on the phone, so you won't see her, but you will hear her. None other than super producer, $100 million lady, Michele Town. Hey, Michele.
Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday.
Yeah, it's always great to have you here. And, it's interesting, right? Bill and I, we were trading messages yesterday about kind of where to go today, right? What does everybody need here as we're about to wrap up the third quarter of 2018? This year has flown by, and really, Bill and I kind of thought, let's talk about finishing strong. And so, Bill, what does that mean to you? Kind of what are you seeing from the coach's chair, and what's on your mind?
Yeah, it's 15 years in this chair, Todd, literally, same chair, same Herman Miller. I think that's who it is, era and chair, right? 15 years of this. So 15 seasons when summer is ending and we're starting to look at fall and Q4. In the mortgage industry, if you guys have been around me for a while, I talk about what I call the pumpkin spice syndrome, and we're deeply in the middle of pumpkin spice syndrome right now. Unless you're along the eastern seaboard right now and battling hurricane conditions, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that's impacted by Florence today. That is a ridiculous amount of water. But yeah, man, it's always the same thing. And I looked up these numbers. So this is a jolt for all of us. We are 47 days to Halloween, 69 days to Thanksgiving, and 102 days to Christmas. So what does that mean to us in the mortgage industry? What that means is there's a window of time where most of the world begins to check out. They just do, right? We start to see the decorations are already in Costco. People start getting distracted. And so there's the potential for distraction. I'm not saying business isn't being done. I would say quite the contrary. But that's the point, Todd, right? It's always about, and Michele, you would know the same thing, and I'm sure you lived this. It's about doubling down right now, you guys, and fighting the temptation of what I call pumpkin spice syndrome. So it's saying, and I heard this from Todd, Andy McDonough, a regional with Home Street up in Seattle. Andy said, I tell my branch managers right now, the time that you lean in right now with your referral partners, with your database, with the leads that you're converting, you're not only going to get a one-on-one return. His contention is you're actually going to get a greater ROI than that in a market like we're in right now, because you're actually gaining market share, right? You're going to start pulling away some of that business from the people that were doing 1 to 3 deals a month, and they don't have a strategy for Q4, let alone Q1 in a whole new year. So kind of a long answer to a short question, but that's how I see it, man. Now is the time to lean in a big way.
And I totally think you're spot on as always, right? I mean, I love, of course, you always have great names for things. Pumpkin spice syndrome, right? I mean, but think about that, right? I mean, everything's pumpkin now. So you just need the pumpkin. Can they be this pumpkin spice loan officer? I don't know that probably wouldn't be what I want to be. But what it makes me think about is it sort of makes me think, you were mentioning that graphic that Dave has, and I've got that. I can throw it up here at some point if we want to talk about that. But I really love the direction that Dave has gone. You want to be a local relationship-based loan officer, right? And so that's right what Andy was talking about. I mean, it's right in the same, the line with that. What are you seeing as far as strategies that people like Andy are deploying with their sales force in order to try to make sure that they don't fall off at the end of the year, that they don't get distracted by those big 3 holidays coming up that you just talked about, that they don't really get, they're not following that next shiny object. They're just really digging in and doing what they have to do.
Yeah, man, it is. I mean, this because you and I are both coaches in our master's coach program, the elite program for kind of the best of the best in our industry. But we're very focused right now on, like, the obvious play is actually at the beginning of that chart. If you don't mind throwing that one up, can you put them both up at once or one at a time?
I just put them onto the same document. I'm not quite sure if it'll show at once, but I can probably figure that out. So let me go in here to share my screen, and I think I got it. And I just might have to shrink this thing up once it gets rolling.
Perfect. No, that's great. So if you guys didn't see this was, at least the first time I saw it was with the call that Dave did with Todd Duncan on Tuesday. And so the top model there, it may not be perfect, and I think there's room for a little tweaking, but just don't get off in the weeds in that. Just think of this in a broad scope. He says, here's today's mortgage model, right? So we've got lead development, advice, the transaction, and then client for life. And if you look down each one of those elements there, the lead development in today's market for many loan originators is realtors, referrals, and past clients. Now scroll to the next one, if you would, Todd. And of course, as Dave would describe it, the mortgage coach model, which I'm just going to say is, I think this is the model for the future, right, is the transaction has shrunk. So if you look in that sort of, third quarter section there, the transaction has shrunk because that's actually what technology is doing for us. But look at that first section. The first section now, I've got realtors, I've got referrals, I've got past clients, but we've added the fourth category there, a lead gen strategy. And Todd, I know you're having the same conversation with clients. Michele, I'm guessing you are as well. I know I am, where that's, to answer your question directly, that's where I see people focusing their time. Todd, all of a sudden people are saying, wow, annual mortgage reviews, I should really start doing those again. We stopped, right? We stopped because everybody was being refinanced. If I'm having a conversation with a borrower about refinancing their loan, that became, if you will, their annual or quarterly, for some of us, mortgage review. Well, that's a new discipline. And so that's where I see right now the name of the game is, in particular, that first section on the lead gen side.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke at a realtor event yesterday alongside of one of your clients, Templeton Walker, who's just a rock star young realtor worth following online. And the team that was hosting the event, they've got 40 agents in 5 different states. They're about a $150 million team. And they said that currently right now, their average lead incubation time from when they first make contact to when they actually close on a transaction is 9 months, right? And so you mentioned it, right? The actual transaction time has shrunk, right? Companies are faster now. They don't have as many loans. They're overstaffed oftentimes. So they can get a loan done quickly, where before we were faster than everyone else in our industry. And now that other long spread out time, there's just so much noise, there's so much distraction. I'd heard someone speak last year, and they had quoted numbers from a credit union that polled their members who actually closed with them, and the average had talked to about a dozen realtors and about a half a dozen loan officers before they made their final choice. There's so much noise out there that if you're not doing a great job there, I think you're missing an opportunity to lose them. And then I think on the other side, you nailed it with the annual mortgage reviews, right? So at Masters Coach, we have a day that was called the Producers Roundtable. So before, in 2019, the group is shifting back. Probably some of you know this and some of you haven't heard. We're actually shifting back to production leadership focus, which is where the group was originally birthed. And we had this day before where the producers got together. Now it's going to be 3 days of producers hanging out together who run large teams and large production forces. But this last one we had, Michael Regan and I looked at each other. We had 33 people in the room, and it was kind of like what's old is new again. Things like annual mortgage reviews. How do you go back to your database and squeeze out those future transactions with people who already know you and like you? And then how do you make sure that the people you're currently working with will close with you? And then also the people that you're currently closing will want to work with you in the future, right? So it's a lot more balls in the air now. Aren't you seeing that also as well, Bill?
Yeah, for sure. And it's always odd being the one person that's on by phone, because Michele, we can't see you smiling, nodding your head, holding your hand, right? So I'd love to have you chime in on this. I mean, what's your reaction to what we've just discussed?
Oh my gosh. Well, you don't want to see me right now because I have the flu. I'm sparing you guys everything, but so I took some good. First of all, I love pumpkin spice, so the pumpkin spice syndrome for me is my comfort. That's my comfort drink when I'm not feeling good. But so to answer the question on Q4, we did Q4 in the summer. So we planned for Q4 in the summer, and we are working on Q1 now for 2019. We always are, 3 to 4 months ahead. We do a big push towards the end of the year. But we focus on, like, all my marketing and everything's going towards Q1. That's where my focus is, but my team is on, finishing up Q4. And we started something new, and I'm going to share it because I think it was so powerful. When we do our closing, like our, congratulations, you've closed, please review us, please refer us. We added in something which we thought was remarkable, and this came from our retreat this weekend that we did with our team. When we close a loan, we thank the client for being so for instance, the one we closed yesterday, it was our 145th client and family that we were able to welcome to our family this year. So we're letting them know how important they are to us as well by letting them know, hey, thank you for being, we've now been able to help 145 people. So that's one of the things that we did. Annual reviews. It's because we didn't have any time to do them when the market was so fast. You couldn't get them out fast enough before they'd be, a lower rate would have come out. Jeremy Forcier, I had the pleasure of having him, and then Cindy Ertman's coaching thing, and he had a one-on-one with us. And I added something that I wasn't doing, and that was I not only showed them where they're at, where current market is, but I also showed them what a 15-year looks like. So that was like a light bulb in my head, because a lot of people want to shorten their time frames now. And then one last thing was Michael Harrington. He's one of in my coaching group. When I do my TCA reports for my original quotes, I'm now quoting, because people want the lowest rate, they're also scared about that higher rate. We actually quote a 2-point rate, a 1-point rate, and a 0-point rate so that people have those options. So I thought that was great. And then one last thing, Bill Hart. Bill Hart got me into coaching, even though he doesn't know it. He spoke at our RPM event, and I asked him to be my coach, and he didn't have any room for me. So he introduced me to Cindy Ertman, who became my coach. So thank you, Bill, for doing that.
So my pleasure. And you landed on a really good spot, as you know. So I'm so excited to hear about what you're doing with Cindy. Cindy's a rock star, and I know she thinks the same of you. So glad to hear it, Michele. Glad that, seed planting pays off, right?
It does.
Cool.
So I thought it was pretty cool. So let me make sure, because if Dave was here, we know he'd be jumping all over what Michele just said about Mortgage Coach. And it was one of the things I heard at the Producers Roundtable. And we've talked about it before when we had the interview with Dave Gallegos about price, right? How to go on price, is that we all think as mortgage loan originators as no point loans. And that's what all of our clients want, because that's what we would do for ourselves. But remember, your clients are actually searching online, and all of the big banks and all of the big credit unions and all of the places that your clients are going to go, they're getting quoted with points and not just a single point, multiple points. And so make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and show them that really, really low rate. In fact, I heard a loan officer say that he actually takes the actual lowest rate that's on the rate sheet, that's like 4 or 6 points, that one ridiculous one, and he puts that on there and tells a client, yep, I can get you 3.75 today. And then again, I would be disclosing the number of points. I'm not quite sure that he was. That's not the way we do business here, right? We're transparent and ethical. However, what it does is it gets them going down and gets them to the conversation so that they can have the total cost analysis conversation as well. And so I think that's really critical as we really talk about what this Mortgage Coach model looks like. Anything else, Bill, you want to say on this model while I still have it up here?
It really resonated with me when I saw it. I asked Dave for it yesterday so I could look at it and share it and of course give him credit, but there's so much conversation about, let's think, mortgage compression, LO comp, price, right? These are the conversations every day that are going on. I was in Tom Ferry's office last week and did an interview with him on the book, and he showed me his office space, and he's got this imagine this, artificial intelligence in his CRM. He has permission to record all of his clients' calls, the coaching calls, and they create wordles, right, where they find patterns of words and they throw them up. So you can start to see the patterns of words that his 175 coaches are hearing each and every day in real time. And so those are the words that we would hear in the mortgage industry right now is, right, we had price and margin compression and LO comp. And so it was the first time that I was able to visually step back and say, wow, there it is. I mean, visually, that's what's happening in our industry, Todd. And I just feel like the mortgage coach model, if we really think about it, you guys, no matter what company you work for, there's some investment that has either been made or is being made or will be made on technology. And the outcome of that is the shrinking of the time of the transaction, right? It's going to be faster to collect docs, get signatures, everything comes together faster. So the good news in that, and it's great news for us, is that you're able to spend less time with the files, in the files. That's great news, because I can tell you as a coach, that's the number one issue I've worked on with clients for 15 years. Todd, you and I worked on it 10 years ago, right? So now what does that mean? He's got in gold now the 3 areas where we need to focus our time. And we just heard Michele call it out. I'm going to spend more time in lead development. I'm going to spend more time on the advice side. And of course, he's added the third component there with the mortgage coach video, right? We've got to be doing, if you're doing a TCA without video, I don't even know what to tell you. That's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know.
I remember you making me buy my first camera for my laptop, and it had to be like right when they were invented. I was like 2000.
Yeah.
Or, no, it must have been 2000, end of 2003, beginning of 2004, based on where I remember the office I was sitting in when it arrived. And so you've been such a big proponent of it. It's just taken the rest of the world to catch on to your wisdom.
Got to do it.
And so I think when I'm looking at this, right, I keep turning my head sideways to look at it. As I'm hearing you talk, I think that if you are going to really crush it between now and the end of the year so that you get some momentum going into next year, you've got to be looking at all of those vertical lines, and you've got to make sure that you've got one by one, pick one out at a time. Don't pick them all. You'll never get anywhere, right? A strategy for each one. I think that's going to be the difference between those who go into the year with momentum and those who go in drinking pumpkin spice lattes.
Absolutely. And Todd, here's a great example. So I'm with a group of top producers about 2 weeks ago, and I'm sitting around a round table of 40 of them. It's not my event. I've been hired to come in and speak. I'm listening to them, and then I'm going to do a little white collar warrior workshop, right? I'm going to unpack the essence of the book. But I'm listening to them, and there's a kid. I don't know if I told you this story. I say he's a kid because he's in his 20s. And he's listening to people talking about databasing as an example. They're on the far right of that chart. And he finally raises his hand and he says, hey, you guys, so far this year, I've been able to average 20 loans a month, 20 loans a month. So pretty darn good, right? And he says, I don't really understand databasing. Like, I get my business from realtors and social media. And you could just see the people who've been around the business, right? That we all kind of looked around the room blinking like, holy cow, what did this guy just say? And he follows it up with, I don't really understand this whole databasing thing. Like, what do you even mean by that? So here's the thing. If you're on this call right now, he's in his 20s. He's been in the business less than 10 years, which means he hasn't seen a market dip, right? Hasn't really been through a market adjustment. And he's standing there saying, I think I've got it pretty well figured out. And what he realized is, I've got a huge gap. So my recommendation would be is if you're on this call right now, this is a great time. And Todd and I are actually working on a tool to help you to do this. It's actually kind of an entry point that we're going to be using with the master's coach to try and find the right candidates. Not everybody's the right candidate, right, to be in this group, but we want to have an assessment where you can go in much like you would go to a doctor's appointment, right? And say, I'm getting life insurance right now. And I just had a woman come out the other day. She took my blood. She listened to my heart, right? She asked for another sample. And in that way, the insurance company, no, not that one, the other one. Anyway, the insurance company is able to determine whether or not they want to underwrite me, right? That's how that works. I'm saying if I was going to underwrite you as a loan originator today, Do I feel good about all the specific areas that you have covered, or do you have a gap in your business? Michele, at some point, I'll bet when you started coaching with Cindy, there was a gap, whether it was your database, your prospecting, your process, your team. Am I right? Did you have some gaps when you started?
Oh, yes. I had many gaps.
Right? So this is that season. That's what I would say is right now is a great time. And I just realized when I heard this kid the other day, I just thought, man, if that's true with this one guy who's killing it right now, what does his business look like 6 months from now, 3 months from now, if he doesn't start diversifying his lead sources, figuring out his database, having a follow-up system afterwards, right? That's the opportunity that I see right now, Todd. I just feel like now's the time to kind of reboot a little bit and say, where are my gaps and what do I do to close them?
Well, and I love that. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later after Bill gets on his next coaching call. I'll kind of talk to all of you about some ideas that I have of how you guys can get there. I feel remiss if I didn't just jump in on one of the things that you mentioned. And, we've got the two of us and, you, Michael Regan and I, and then also Daniel Harkavy, the three amigos plus Daniel in Masters Coach, right, what we're calling TMC3. And you kind of hit a couple things that I would love just to without turning into an infomercial, would love you just to sort of touch on, right? I get all the time people are like, gosh, I would love to spend time with Bill Hart. How does that happen? And who is a good fit for Masters Coach? And then how would they reach out to chat with one of us to see if they are a good fit?
It's a great point. So our focus with the Masters Coach moving into 2019 is coaching, content, and community. And I think one of the things because there's a ton of great programs out there, right? Tim's got a great program. Todd's got a great program. Cindy has a great program. The individual companies have their own great programs. So it's not like there's any lack of opportunity out there. And I think they're all fantastic. The unique thing about what we do is that the coaches that we have in this group are really unparalleled. Between my 15 years, your individual experience, Todd, of building an absolutely unbelievable team, having been in the group for so long and then becoming a coach is completely unique. I don't know anybody who's been through anything like that. And then Michael Regan, who's kind of in between you and I and brings it all together. You guys have been partners in the past. He is absolutely the yin to my yang. It brings it together perfectly. And then the content, again, Todd and I were just talking about the individual things that each of the three of us, if you just go with Michael and Todd and I, and then let alone Daniel and his unbelievable experience now working on his third book and working with, global clients, not just the mortgage industry, right? The content this year is going to be more tactical than it's ever been. So specific things that will move the needle. And then whenever we survey the group at the end of the year, it's always about community, right? As much as we think that's the value that we bring, the group always says, you know what I really benefit from is the ability to sit down with somebody else who does what I do in another market or listen to an idea that never occurred to me, that sharpened me. And Todd, you've done it for years. I mean, I've watched you do it as a client where you were arguably kind of the Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy used to call himself the synthesizer. He said, I don't have to have an original thought, right? I just take a great thought and then execute with aplomb. And you've been fantastic at that. So anyway, again, not to sound like a commercial, but if you're fired up about something, I think it's appropriate that you talk about it. And to me, there's nothing that lights my candle more than hanging out with this group in the Masters Coach.
I love it. And you just hit the nail on the head. I was a member of the group for 8.5 years. And now I've been a coach for almost 2.5 years of the group. And I always just tell people you're my people, right? Like we have that community piece of it. So I guess what I would say is if anyone has questions on it, reach out to me, right? You can just direct message me through Facebook or, most of you know how to track me down. I'm happy to answer any questions for any of you. I think with the shift in focus for next year, those of you who are probably on this call taking the time are probably the target in the sweet spot of who needs to be in there. So, let's talk about it. If it's not for you this year, we can figure out how to get you on path to be there in the future. It's a group that's, put out, just some of the names of the amazing folks who you guys watch on these mortgage coach calls every week, those guys that you see in the top calls of all time, or actually are running some of these other competitive programs right now, all were birthed out of this group. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
I'm going to leave you with one thought, and then I'm going to bail and let you do what you do. But if you ask me who's an ideal candidate, and you did directly, and I'm not sure I answered that, so let me just say that, Pat Lencioni wrote a wonderful book called The Ideal Team Player, and in it he describes that individual as being humble, hungry, and smart. That's who it is, Todd, because here's what we both know. There are a lot of people who are highly productive in this business, but I wouldn't want them in that room. I wouldn't want them with that group because of the way that they roll through their life and business. And if it's from a position of scarcity and I'm not going to share, that's not somebody that's going to fit in the master's coach. There's got to be a certain degree of checking your ego at the door and bringing your best ideas, knowing that you're going to receive more than you give, right? So that would be my closing thought. And as always, buddy, thank you so much for the opportunity. If those of you watching right now have no idea why this guy is wearing this red shirt, it's because it's Friday, which means it's Red Friday, which is remember everyone deployed. It is my life. It is my focus to support those that have served us. Hence the red shirt every single Friday.
I so love that. It's probably TMI, but I'm wearing my red underwear and my red socks.
Nice.
Red Win by Noon shirt. I just have to get one of those. I'm just, it's bad. I admit that. So and I've got that exact shirt in black, so I love it. But I want to say just thanks, guys. So if you guys haven't, let me just give Bill one more plug because he won't do it. White Collar Warrior, right? I mean, look at the reviews on Amazon. Look at the chatter online about it. It's an amazing book. Again, if you want to build those things in the infographic that we just talked about, Bill talks about strategies to do that in that book. And it's one of those things where it's kind of funny because I've started my Amazon review like 3 times, and it's really weird because Bill and I are great friends. But ultimately, when you have a great friend who writes a book or does something really cool, you have to be really careful because you're going to say something nice no matter what. Like even if it's mediocre, but his book kicks ass. So I'm so excited to endorse it, and I know you didn't want to talk about it on this call, but
Thanks, brother. Good hanging out with you.
Soon.
Thank you. I hope you get feeling better soon. Marcy, thank you for your driving the show here. Appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Hey, the rest of you hang out. We're going to talk about a few more things. And so, from this point, what we're going to do is Michele and I are going to sort of take over, and we've got a bunch of information from the community, a bunch of questions that we're going to talk about. I am going to spend just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. So there's one other thing I'll throw out there. And again, it's not a commercial Friday, but you guys have seen that I've been doing a survey of producers, right? I started off doing those struggling with 4 or less loans, and then Dave, with his encouragement, he and I expanded it to all of you. And so have data from about 200 of you almost. And then I've also talked to a couple dozen of you about where you guys are struggling. So I'll just tell you, go to winbynoonoperating-system.com or WBN operating system, and I'll show you real quick what it's going to look like there. And then I'm going to bring on Michele, so she's going to be ready. But ultimately is I'm actually rolling out a one-to-many coaching program. Bill already said it. There's a ton of great coaching programs out there that are $700 or $3,000 a month, all those ranges. And this is just bringing back a playbook of a program that I rolled out back in 2013, 2014 timeframe that was deployed all over the country with multiple coaches. And it's updated it with Win by Noon and where we're going in 2019. So if you're struggling with those things that Bill talked about and some of those pillars we looked at in that infographic, this may be for you. There's a quick 2.5 minute, 2 minute and 50-second video on what it's going to be like. There's going to be 2 different programs that are just going to be running for 90 days. That's it, to help with basically installing the basic operating system that people need alongside with accountability. And then also a second program that's sort of the part 2, but I decided to roll them out together, that is specifically around building referral relationships and how to build that up. Because I really think we got to dig in. We got to have some accountability, and it's got to be affordable. All my mentors, those of you know that I've been working with all these entrepreneurs and thinking in big ideas, they all told me I was crazy to focus on the people who can't afford it. And that's where my heart is, right? That's why I'm here every Friday. And so I only ask for favors every once in a while, but if any of that resonates with you, just take a couple minutes, learn about it, and ask me questions and give me feedback. And that is the end of all I'm going to say on that. And I'm going to bring in Michele. Let me just say one more time where to go. It's Win by Noon operating-system.com or WBN operating-system.com. They go to the same place. It has that video. You can sign up, or you can sign up for a webinar that I'm running on Monday to get more information. Woo. That was a lot. All right, Michele. So what's your takeaway from Coach Bill?
Yeah, I love Coach Bill. First of all, thank you for sharing your operating system. You do have a servant's heart, and that is why we love you so much. Coach Bill is just incredible. I mean, he attracted me 100% after anytime I hear him, he always attracts me. And I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity to hear him. And everything he's saying is so, spot on. It's, right now is not the time to go take, I actually do take my vacations in October, but that's because when I come back in November and December are solely, I have a clear mind, clear heart, clear everything to finish up the last minute things that we need for Q1 to start our building. I love what he said about, finding the right team person who's humble and hungry, because that's important.
Well, and I couldn't agree.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you were pausing for a second. So it's always that weird thing when I can't, you can't see Michele's face, so I can't because she has the flu. So I thought she hit a pause there. I always hate to interrupt. You said something that I thought was so cool. And I remember last year, in fact, we'll make sure that when this gets posted up in YouTube, we'll put a link below to Michele did an interview last year with Dave where she talked about how she plans with all of her realtors before the year starts so that she's already got all of her calendar filled for the first couple months. But you said something when Bill was on that you said that you basically already have done your planning. And then I know you just got back from a team retreat. So tell everyone, what does that look like?
Okay, so we finished at our Q4 planning in July. It was a little bit crazy, but we got it done. And then our Q1, I don't know why I didn't do this before. So anybody who knows me know I struggled with the team concept for quite a while because I was such a dictator and not a leader. And it took me a couple years and lots of therapy and lots of coaching to figure out why I was doing what I was doing. So we had our first annual Just Town group retreat. And I take this from something that I did with Building Champions. Although I was coaching with somebody else, I went to this Building Champions event and it was a life changer for me. I cannot tell you how the group concept of being like, we rented an Airbnb and we all stayed in the same place. So we woke up together, ate breakfast together, ate dinner together, all that fun stuff. It is so incredible what you learn about your people. So I would say from my retreat, what I learned was I need to know my team better. And I need to know more about them personally. I need to take a pause and listen because sometimes I'm so busy, saying, hey, here's our goals, and driving into the goals that I forget to ask what their input was. And this event was, it just strengthened us even more. We had to let one person go because they weren't fitting. And I was a little bit worried because we did that right before the retreat. And it actually was so incredibly empowering for the team because that we didn't realize how much of a drain that person was for us. So those things were great. The other takeaway that we did, we really worked on our, 8 non-negotiables that Jeremy Forcier talks about. We really powered through them, how we were going to treat each other. What was our, you have to finish your, if you commit to the job, finish the job. And if you don't, one of us is because we're going to call you to stay accountable. And we all came to a great agreement. We added more. We did 8 non-negotiables with clients. We added in Zoom. We now have a Zoom corporate account where we are using Zoom for all of our team meetings now because a lot of us are remote. So we see each other every day. And we're using Zoom with our clients as well. So we're trying to let the technology work for us instead of letting letting whatever and we talked about what does our client look like? What does the client for the town group look like in 2019, which is great because that helps me when I do the marketing plan for Q1 in 2019. It was incredible.
Wow. There's like 10 different directions I can go, but there's just a couple of things that I would encourage all you to think about. Number one is not all of you have a team like Michele has and can go to a different state and do this. But I would tell you that you've got people in your office who are team members and how well do you know them, right? Are you one of those people that comes in the morning and you're on the phone and you kind of give them a wave and then you go into your office, right? I was one of those people for a while, right? Wasn't good, right? You want to know the people who are sitting out there. You should know about your processors, right? What's his or her favorite football team? Where do they go to eat? What is their family like, right? And you can do that day to day in the office. Bill mentioned that book by Lencioni, Humble, Hungry, and Smart. It's the greatest book to use from a hiring perspective. It is really, really good how to build the ideal team player. So if you're thinking about that and you're looking for a resource, there's other great resources. Lencioni's really known for the 5 dysfunctions of a team. You can probably see it right up here on my bookshelf and the workbook that goes with that. I've walked a lot of my clients and friends through that process before when it comes to team building. And again, even if it's just you and one other person, that's a team, right? So you've got to think through the things that Michele just talked about, and you have to plan. I mean, Michele used the V word, vision, right? And again, where are you going? So Bill Hart started coaching me in 2003, and I've got this little wimpy 4-page document, a drawer behind me. That was my original vision. But the funny part about it was, it took me longer than I would like to admit, but I built a $100 million team based off of that original vision. The only thing that was different was it took me slightly more people than I originally imagined. It took me a lot more time than I had originally imagined. But in the end, because I had the vision and I reviewed that vision and it got sharpened, I grew. So tell me about that kind of exercise, Michele. I mean, how did you guys approach the vision conversation as a whole team? Did you come in with prepared where you thought it was going, or did you just have an open forum, or what was that like?
So we actually did something unique. We sent them all out a social survey. And asked, we asked certain questions about, what our clients look like or what they thought our clients look like, where were our strengths and weaknesses. But we added in fun stuff like, who do you think what superhero power you'd want? And we did that a week before the retreat. And then what we did was we used the results from the social survey and it was, anonymous, which was great. And we all talked about what the, number one, I kind of gave them direction of, here's the 5 things I'd like to go towards without them knowing it, and to see which one resonated with them, because they didn't know that's what I was doing. So thank God my sister, I love her to death. She's the one who suggested it. And it was eye-opening when you look at where I thought we were going and where they thought we were going. And we used that as a tool to talk about why I wanted to go one place, why they wanted to go one place. And then we came to a happy medium of what we were doing. But the team that I have right now, I mean, I've been working with most of them for 4 or 5 years in one aspect or another. So we are all pretty identified, but we chose at the end that we liked the out-of-the-box non-QM stuff. That's where we thrive. That's where our skill sets were. And what I found from every single person on the survey was everybody wanted to be needed. And if you don't understand that statement, you will soon when you build your team. I did not realize how much they needed to be needed. One of the questions we asked was, how do you like to be bonused? And you would think that everybody wants to be bonused monetarily. That wasn't it. It was the attaboy that they were missing from me. And I took that to heart. And so now I'm back to, once a month, I write a letter to the team. Each of them gets a handwritten note thanking them for everything they're doing so that I could make a difference in their life, not just monetarily. It's pretty eye-opening for me. I thought everybody wanted money.
And that goes down a whole different path of behavioral patterns and stuff like that. Maybe we'll do a new call on that. But I would say I've seen it over and over again where most of the people on the operational side, their love language, their behavioral pattern, what helps them sleep at night is a higher fixed salary and lower risk, which is the bonus, when most of the time we think like they want a lower salary in this huge bonus so that they win big when we win big, and they don't want that at all normally. So I love that you ask those questions. That's really important. And so again, let's get in that habit, whether you guys just have one team member or you've got a few team members like Michele does, or if you're one of the people who I see here on the call who's got a mega team, again, something to consider. If you've done this, it's not too late. You can always start today. So I love it. If anyone has any questions for Michele, I'm getting a couple of PMs from people asking for stuff. So if you guys have any other questions, just go ahead and post it in Facebook or post it here in Zoom in the chat or the questions. That'd be helpful because I've got my phone dinging. I've got all sorts of things going on from different people, but that's where I'm going to answer what we've got. I've also talked to Dave earlier today. He kind of gave me some of the headlines off of Facebook. I kind of unplugged from it a little bit lately. So I've committed to him I would get back and be more involved in the group going forward. But just wanted to sort of highlight a couple things since we've got Michele on here. Are you doing much, Michele, right now in social media? Somebody had asked whether they should hire somebody out, a company to do it, or whether they should do it themselves. And most people said, do it yourself. But what are you doing, if anything at all?
Oh, great question, because wow, great question. So I have been looking for my own social media person for the last 4 months because that's where everything's going, and I'm not good at it, and I don't want to be good at it. It's not my area of expertise. So I've interviewed like, 17 different people, different strengths, different weaknesses, and I was like, God, I don't want to have to manage one more person. So I ended up using a company that had 90% of what I wanted, and it's called Outbound Engine. I use them. They do all my social media posts. I went to the premium membership because I wanted to be able to integrate 4 of my own stuff. Their stuff is relevant. It's well written. They clean up all your sites. When they actually interviewed me, they went to the site that I had, like, my name was still associated with the company I worked for 20 years ago on the internet. So I was like, oh my God. So they cleaned all that up for me. They made my presence social. My presence relevant. All their content is relevant. It's not the same cookie cutter stuff that everybody does. I wanted something different, but I needed something well written. And they do a fantastic job. So that's who I use. That's
awesome. I love hearing that, again, and I think, you can argue any of the philosophies on it. A lot of chatter around was that you've got to have your own voice. So it sounds like they were able to put your own voice in as well as make sure the execution happened. Because in the end, done is better than perfect. If you're not doing it because you're too busy, then maybe having someone else do it, if it can be in your voice, is good. And I love that you picked a solution you would do it. I'm shocked that there was still stuff coming up from your companies 20 years ago. Was that a lot of stuff, or was it just a little?
Just a little bit. I mean, when they do this integration and they pull they have smart technology that pulls everything and how you're notified, how you're identified. And there was just one with my old benchmark funding company, but everything else was, I didn't clean anything up when I left my last company 2 years ago. So everything was still pointing to old websites that were no longer there. So they would click on it and there would be, sorry, not found. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to not be found. That's what social media is all about. So, and they did all the new stuff, the Instagram and all that stuff that I don't even know how to work. So they manage it for me. They track it for me, which is, we all know, and Todd Duncan is the number one about this, is you must be able to track your posts to make sure that they're relevant. And, if you send out a post and only one person is opening it, it's not a relevant post, change the post. And I don't know how to do that. So I needed somebody to do it for me.
See, I love that. I think that's, again, think through this, what can you do to execute a little bit today, these whole baseline things. So going back to that diagram that we had put up before, I'm going to throw it up again real quick. And one of the things that is on there for the modern loan officer, right, the current mortgage coach loan officer, is this piece where it says TCA first 30 days after closing. So Josh asked a question, Michele, are you sending out a TCA post-closing, or is that something you don't do till the first annual mortgage review?
So I do a TCA during the transaction. I do not do one after we close because I do something different. We do a little campaign with them on, the closing, make sure that they've got their first payment and stuff like that. It's a great idea, but I just don't do it. I didn't have the time to do it. But my first TCA goes out at 6 months, and then my second one goes out to the annual review. So I do two annual review, or 2 reviews on TCA during the first year, and then they get an annual review after that.
See, I love that. So I love this idea, and it's not something that my team has worked on. So one of my commitments to all of you is one of the things we're doing in the Win by Noon area. We're starting to add more content into our free portal. And in that free portal, I'm going to put the basic annual mortgage review process, and then in the operating system program, where we've got a future module that actually will go into with the scripts and the process. But let me just tell you what I think that looks like, so that, Josh, you kind of know. Really, it just makes sense. And we learned it from Kelly Zitlow on one of the calls before, where she just said, gosh, at closing, I update the TCA so it's ready to go for next year's annual mortgage review. And so I think it's just doing a little bit of what Michele said, right? You should be calling your clients after they close. And, you're trying to avoid the conversation about, oh, the garage door didn't work. Oh, the plumbing got backed up. Those kind of happen if you're asking about the house. However, you can do that first payment reminder on that phone call, or you could also shoot out a TCA with what their final numbers were. And then you can use that as an opportunity to set up your annual mortgage review, to remind them that you're there for them if they have any mortgage questions along the way, to remind them that they're going to get 27 different letters that make it look like it came from your mortgage company, trying to sell them insurance products, trying to tell them they can already refinance and save money, right? They're going to get that. You all know that. We just don't do a good job of educating our clients on what that is. And so for me, the ideal process would be a phone call where you've checked in on their move, you've reminded them about the 30-day, their payment being due. And then you also said, hey, by the way, take a look for another one of those total cost analysis. I built it up, but there's going to be a special video for you there. And then that way you're not selling them on that next loan yet, right? There's tons of stuff. Tim Brahim did a great video on that before, right? You're selling that next loan literally from your first call. And so again, it goes back to this chart, right? I turned my head, sorry, to look at it. Is, you're working the TCA in all along. And so you might as well have that done. If anyone else on this call is doing something different for the post-close with a TCA, I would certainly love to hear it, because I think it's one of those things that you're just missing. It's really easy to do when you've already set it up. You just have to go through and clean it up. If you've got an assistant, he or she can do it. But even if you did it yourself, it wouldn't take long. The time it's going to take is that personal touch, that video. But that's really it. We know that our databases are going to be really big next year. And so we just want to make sure that we've got those things going. So again, anyone else who's got questions, let me know. I'm just checking the chat real quick, because we've got a couple of questions here. Shannon's asking, how do you have time to make these and still handle all the daily tasks of an LO? You want to take that one on, Michele? So how do you have time to do the TCAs, do all this other stuff, and do your loan officer tasks?
Delegate. Delegate. I remember I have a team. So one of the things that's coming up, and I just want to remind everybody, remember, end of the year, I always do, thanks to my friend Shelly Logeman, who's helped me institute this, is your final closing statement. So one of the things that was discussed at our event was, we're going to take it one step further this year. We're going to do the final closing statement, and we're going to pull we have you can do a free AVM with Zillow or whatever. We're going to pull a Zillow, and then we're going to do a general Zoom video that's going to say, hey, congratulations, here's your closing statement for this year. It's attached. Also, we've attached your estimated value this year to show you what a great investment you made. Please let us know if you'd like us to send this to your CPA or anything like that. So, but I have delegated that to my team. So they are now, one person is grabbing the closing statements, and then she's pulling AVMs. That's her last job, the last 2 weeks of the year. She'll be doing that. So I don't do that. My only job is to create the video. So awesome. Delegate.
Okay. And so I don't know you, Shannon, so I don't know if you're on your own or you've got anyone to delegate to. So let me talk to those of you who don't have a team to delegate to, right? And I can tell you that at some point you're going to need to make an investment in yourself. And I know that a lot of you are at that hurdle, because I already mentioned, I talked to a lot of you over the last few weeks. And I would tell you that's sort of where this idea of installing the operating system, you've got to come up with your time management system, right? This group was birthed out of Darren Hardy's Insane Productivity, which is got the word productivity and how to be more productive. And so for me, I'm really passionate about this concept right now that we're all running around and doing too much, and we need to be focused on our internal operating system and how we approach a day. I was talking to somebody over the weekend, and it was funny. She's been in the business for 20 years. And she had a huge impact on me, whether she realizes or not. I haven't looked to see if she's on the call yet today, but she had a huge impact. So I was picking her brain about these two offerings I'm about to have. And I told her, well, gosh, 20 years in the business, you probably wouldn't be interested in this basic offering of how to install the operating system. And she said, well, I don't know if I know what the basics are, Todd. And so it's interesting. I reframed how I designed what that 90-day course is going to look like. And I do believe that you have a challenge with your day. If you can't figure out how to squeeze these other things in, there's probably some other organizational piece that might be of advantage. It's hard to, you don't want to be making a diagnosis without actually having a conversation. But I often find that if you can figure out how to schedule time for those things, that's sort of what it comes back to. And that's my super hyper focus right now of where I'm trying to drive people, where Dave's trying to drive people with this model. So I'm looking at some other things here. I'm typing in there. Someone's asking about Michele's social media. It's Outbound Engine. I'm putting it into the chat. So if you've got questions in there, yeah,
let me know and I'll send you over to my guy. But one thing I wanted to add in, Todd, that I thought was important is if you don't have a team, which I didn't have a team up until 5 years ago. So something that I wish I would have done and I wish I would have knew I could have done is, especially during the holiday season, you got your college kids that are coming home that want to earn a couple extra bucks that you don't have to put on payroll. You can pay them, on a outbound or a contract basis. Let's say that you don't have time to do your closing statements and pull the AVM. Hire somebody for $10 an hour and have them come in and do it. You'll need to show them maybe once or twice, but have them do that for you. I know it's going to probably cost you a couple $100 to do it, but what you're going to get from that couple $100 is going to be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It's worth the investment in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Someone's asking Michele how to find you on Facebook. I'll tell you the first thing is, and this is the most difficult part to understand, is that Michele is a one-L'd Michele. Can you spell out your info for people so if they want to track you down and watch what you're doing online, they can?
Sure, it's www.micheletown.com. So it's MICHELETOWN.com.
There we go. So take a look out there for her. She's just a great asset to this community. All right, so we've got 7 minutes left. We're kind of winding down. I've left up this mortgage coach model because I want you guys to see the impact of it, right? Take a few minutes and look at it because there's parts on here that as you guys are going into the fourth quarter that you should be focusing on. And I said parts, but there's got to be one thing that you pick out, right? You heard Michele say she just took her team out of state so that they can focus on their vision. They can focus on their systems. They can focus on process, right? Maybe you just need to take yourself out of the office for a day, half a day, a few hours, and do what Darren Hardy would call a jam session. What are the recommendations would you have, Michele, after people look at Dave's mortgage coach model that they should, how they should filter out where to start first so that they don't get overwhelmed with all the potential gaps?
Shiny objects, right? We're king and queens of those. Start with, just do one. Start with just a generic one. And if you don't want to see yourself on video, don't let that stop you. Do the voiceover one. Start one and practice with it. And if you don't, if you're worried about your content not being good, send it to somebody else or send it to me. I'll look at it for you. I have no problem doing that for you. And I'll give you my feedback. But you just have to do it because I can tell you my first mortgage coach was 10-minute video, 10 minutes. Now I'm down to one. So don't over-explain, keep it simple, and you're just giving data. And the other thing that I've really been encouraging my clients to do when I get them on the phone, because I'll hey, let's chat about this, and I'll ask them for a time, and I'll send them the video right before our time, and I'll say, okay, great. Do you have a second to get on your computer? And I go to the live edge and I move the cursor around so they can see what we're doing and I explain it to them. So don't try to explain too much on the video because you can explain what you need to explain on live or on the phone with them.
Yeah, I think that's huge, right? You're not going to be great when you start out on a video, right? Just know that it's just not, you're not going to like it, right? You're going to be like, oh, look, my one eye doesn't open as much as the other one. And there's some great content in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. I'll make sure that we put it down below. Kelly Zitlow kind of walked you through sort of the book on it. She'll tell you she didn't like the way that she looked either, but now she is the queen of video. She does great stuff, and she goes out in her marketplace. Not only does she do good videos for herself and her business, she uses that as one of her USPs. She teaches classes to her realtors, and she helps them put video into their system. So again, once you do it more, then you get more succinct. I would tell you the other thing that you fall into all the time is this whole idea I have to re-record it, right? So I recorded a video this morning. Now I re-recorded it because the first time I recorded it, I forgot to hit the record button, and I can tell you it was pretty good. But you're gonna stumble over things. You'll notice if you follow me at all, I post things all the time where I make mistakes. Now I could re-record it with the intention of trying to make it perfect, but I don't have that much time in my life to do that. And I would just sort of tell you, one of my coaches, my coach after Bill was Steve Scanlon, who was just on a video with Dave this week. If you haven't watched it, it's really awesome. But Steve always told me that people liked my videos because they weren't very good. He said it more delicate than that, but that was sort of how I internalized it. But what he meant is people liked it because I was real, right? It didn't have any fancy intro and any fancy outro, and it didn't have shiny lights and stuff all over me, and it didn't have this cool new background that I built for myself. It was just me wherever I was, Starbucks, a parking lot, my car seat, never driving. But it was me, and then I just said what was on my heart and on my mind. And so Michele's gotten it from 10 minutes down to 1 minute, right? You can do that over time, but just don't worry. You just got to start somewhere. And I would be remiss in telling you that if we're talking about how a TCA is a game changer, it is, right? Look at the conversation in the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind Facebook group. People talk about it every day in there. However, when you can take it to the next level, do what Michele just said, Facebook Live, and you have a video on there, that takes it to the highest level possible. So that'll be my Dave Savage plug in his absence. All right, Michele, we got a couple minutes. You want to just riff on any last minute thoughts before I close out the call?
No, I would just say, just really do it. Just don't be afraid of it. I mean, technology is here, you guys, and it sucks because I'm not the biggest technology, but we just need to figure a way to make it work for us, for some of us old timers. And I remember the first TCA, I go, God, this took so long. I could have, flipped out a fee worksheet in 2 minutes. Well, that's because I have to remind myself my first fee worksheet probably took me 10 minutes. So the more and more you do it, the better and better you get. I mean, and set your templates and you'll be just fine, but just do it. Don't worry about it. I've had my hair look like Ronald McDonald Orange. I've had a baseball cap on. I've had no makeup on. And it is what it is. People like you being real. They like real people. You're dealing with real people.
Well, I love you, Michele, for what you bring to this call. You are real people. Get well. Thanks for showing up even when you have the flu. And Michele also said that even though she and her whole team got sick on this adventure together, that she wouldn't have traded it for the world. And so as always, I thank Marcy, who's behind the scenes. She's our Wizard of Oz, making this all happen. And of course, Bill's already gone, but a huge thank you to Bill. I'm guessing that he will be watching this. Those of you who made it here through the end of the call, we always get about 90-some-odd% of you who make it all the way through. Thank you for being here. On behalf of Dave Savage and Mortgage Coach, I'm Todd Bookspan with Win by Noon. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy week to be here. If it's on Facebook Live, great. If you're on YouTube watching it, great. If you were here live, even better. We appreciate you. And if you're not a member of the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind group on Facebook, get in there. We need you. We got 4,100 people in there. Great conversation. Jump in, answer questions. And most importantly, we'll see you here next week. Same time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Same place here on Zoom. And I am out of here.
Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you again.